it's like going grocery shopping when you're
Yeah, so I don't know, the later it goes in the night, you know, more decisions are made.
All right.
Okay, we're live.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So this will start the deliberations portion of tonight's meeting for the zoning board November 18th meeting. Before we get started, I just want to take just a brief minute here. I'm going to share my screen here for a moment. We heard a lot about Rochester 2034, which is the city's comprehensive plan, which was passed back in the late fall of 2019. Which included a placemaking plan, which is not a zoning map. It is a placemaking plan, which outlines the general direction which a zoning map will become. So it informs the new zoning map. So I'm going to share my screen and just show you here. I hope everyone can see I'm on rochester2034.com website. So this is the placemaking plan. So what you're looking at here is not down to a parcel level. It is just general boundaries. So if I zoom in here into the Beechwood area, you'll see I can't go any further and there's not a boundary drawn around parcels. It's just simply a general area. So what you're looking at is Rochester, which is a bit of a hub and spoke city, downtown being in the center. And then there are streets that radiate out to the edges of the city. So the hub being downtown. Generally speaking, the density is focused downtown. You can see the purple is like the center city area, this goldish color being a high density district, the darker yellow being a medium density district, and the lightest yellow being a low density district. So from a planning perspective, you can see where the density sort of radiates downward from a high density down to a low density as you work your way out. So a lot of applicants tonight mentioned this plan. The applications that mentioned it, Harlem Street and South Union, both are currently in R2 medium density residential district, as well as the medium density residential district for the placemaking plan. Both being in this general area where my cursor is here. So as we talk about density, as we talk about housing options, I just wanted to make a point of showing this. If you think of it, this is a very general conversation I'm having right now. Of course, I'm generalizing what you're seeing here, but I just wanted to provide the context for folks because it was mentioned by several applicants. And again, what we're looking at is the placemaking plan as part of Rochester 2034, right at rochester2034.com. Any questions on that? Okay, very good. With that, let me see if there's any applicants on the line and we'll deliberate them first. The first applicant I see on tonight's agenda is case number 5, Atlantic Avenue. So we will start there. This is the driveway. I do want to just mention, I mentioned it during the hearing or the pre-meeting, I can't remember now. Should any approval be granted, the inspector will need to measure the distance off the back wall of the house. There's like a sidewalk up against there. So if there's any concern about proximity to the property line, that will be solved by that. But that being said, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Okay, so this is the driveway on Atlantic. Any comments here? It seems like the work, which I'm still confused about, it was sort of done and it's not in code enforcement. Then there was a curb cut done. So, but that's here nor that, that doesn't really matter at this point. Any thoughts on this? Any real opposition or, changes?
I just find the area to be congested. She's got a lot of stuff in that driveway, especially butted up next to the house, that just seems so tight between the garbage cans and the tables, and then sort of behind the garage. I mean, little porch. I don't have any problem with the project. I would just want it tidied up a bit.
I mean, sort of her property. She can.
I know. It's just I can't imagine getting in and out of a car in that little space.
You just hit the garbage can toe every
time. Hit the garbage can.
Dealing with snow.
You could jump out the trunk.
Well, that's actually the reason why I was suggesting that she find out what the options were to maybe even purchase the additional land, maybe a couple feet in order to accommodate for the tight space. If she can get a couple feet from the neighbor, then she'll be all set.
I don't
Just
I
as
don't
a
think she
a
has a
note,
shot at doing that, given that guy objected to the whole project.
I was just going to say he's the public commenter or one of the public comments.
Yeah, the guy next door, he wrote, yeah.
That's out. I don't have a problem with it though.
And I don't want to introduce more cost to her, but it would be nice if she put up a fence between her and her neighbor. Unfortunately, it would make the space even tighter, as Cora has brought up. But,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know.
They really will be hopping out the trunk then. I mean,
I didn't understand the public comment where somebody mentioned losing 2 parking spots. I mean, she'd be taking one in herself anyways on the street.
I think the argument that the commenter was trying to make is with the installation of a curb cut where one did not exist before, by the time you fan it out onto the street, you're eliminating 2 parking spaces on the street. So it starts at the outer part of the public sidewalk and then fans out to the street.
Yeah, I also wonder if the fact that it landed like between 2 parking spaces, because I think right on that corner,
yeah, you could have got one in there possibly.
there's a handicap spot right on her corner.
Right, which
So,
they mentioned, the comment mentioned.
So I have a feeling that that's what they're referring to, 2 spaces. So but I guess technically it's 1 because she creates 1 for herself.
So because because the curb cut seems to have already been made by whoever, so what happens when this person gets like the right contractor and gets a permit to do all this? What if DES says no, like you can't have a curb cut there, even though the curb cut is already there? Like what? How does that work?
They can make her close it. So the driveway request is subject to both. So what would happen is if this gets approved, she would have to get a legalizing permit with DES. And the way DES works is they have a set of standards that have to be done. So the contractor has to perform the work based on a set of standards. And if it's not done, it would have to be corrected. Or if DES says, no, you can't have this driveway here because we don't want it there for X, Y, and Z reason, then the curb would have to be rebuilt back to whatever was there before it was put in.
Any other comments, David? Anything to add? Or you good?
I do just want to go on the record
ahead,
here of saying, I think the neighboring property part of the comment that came in, it's a little bit difficult. This is her rear yard based on the code. And, he's basically making the argument it's his side yard. So where there was for the last X number of years, not a driveway up against that side of the house, one would be introduced here. But the zoning code does not have a setback distance for driveways from property lines.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to grant and to accept the standards in the application.
Second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, this is the delayed. Let me go through and poll everybody because it's not coming through. We'll start with Matt.
Grant.
Tyrese.
Deny.
Who's next? David.
Grant.
Cora.
Grant.
Joe.
Grant.
And Holly.
Deny.
So the motion carries with Tyrese and Holly voting no. Okay, let's check to see other applicants still on the line. We have case number 7, Brendan is on the line. This is 169 South Union Street.
Hey, Joe, I know you had a lot of comments and questions. Do you think that the applicants satisfied the questions that you had asked them?
Well, before you answer that question, I want to, in addition to my spiel in the beginning about density and zoning districts and housing choices, et cetera, the applicant touched on this a bit, and you can't write a zoning code obviously for 68,000 properties in the city, but there are unique circumstances. There are triangular shaped parcels. There are parcels that don't meet requirements. There are et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when properties like that come in, this is the venue by which to attempt to legalize. So I just wanted to make note of saying that.
Thank you.
To answer your question, yeah, I mean, they addressed them. I'm not saying I agree
And I
with
certainly
them
think that was a
100%,
solid
but,
point you brought up.
I mean, I would have liked to have seen that. I know that money's involved, but technically not supposed to really factor that in, but I don't know. What do you guys feel?
I guess, Joe, I was thinking the opposite. Rather than knocking down that house and making more, adding a property, I guess my thought was taking away a property. Why 3 and not 2?
Yeah, I know. I noticed that when you brought that up.
Yeah, I think I certainly believe that both of those are certainly alternatives. Obviously, the applicant laid out why 3 would make the most sense for what he wants to accomplish. As the applicant said, more of what the applicant said, Brendan. I just think this is such a fantastic use of unused land that is being tapped into. What I try not to do is I understand that there's sections of the code that we have to really look at that parking piece of it. As an urban planner myself, I really try not to, hold that back from really unleashing what I think is really going to be a great development and something that's going to be owner occupied, even though it could be owner occupied and that owner obviously could rent it out themselves. But really tapping into a piece of unused land that really fits the character of this neighborhood. I mean, if you go on Broadway behind, I mean, just, looking at those townhomes that are there, I think this really ties into and really with their, I know we had the brewery come before us over on Marshall Street, really looks at some of the improvements they're making in this whole, South Union corridor, even as we talk about what they've done to infill that side of the Eastern Interloop. So those are just my general thoughts. And certainly understand all the feedback that we received from the public as well. But anybody else, any thoughts or comments on this? Holly, Matt, David?
Oh, I just have a question. So he says that he's going to give the parking spot in the garage on the adjacent property, but there's really nothing that requires him to actually do that, especially when he subdivides, right? He's just saying like, this is what I'm going to do, but there's no way to make him actually do that, right?
He also doesn't need to.
Right.
Because it's a variance, it's not an alternative parking plan. It's a great benefit, of course. He can say upon sale of this property, we're going to do an easement for the space, wherever. But because it's not an alternative parking plan, which is a formal process through the City Planning Commission, where you actually account for not meeting parking by getting credit for proximity to a transit stop, by getting credit for on-street parking, by getting credit for parking elsewhere. The difference here being it's a variance, so you don't necessarily need to do that. And because he needed other variances, that's why it's tied in here.
Okay, thank you.
And Holly, I would bet he's going to do it because it just makes it more attractive to sell those. And I know once he gets them built, he wants to sell them, or before he even gets them built, he wants to sell them. Matt, David, any comments here?
No.
All right, do we have a motion?
The applicant, hold on, I just want to touch base on, so the applicant, in terms of alternatives, just for decision purposes, any comments? The applicant touched base on potential alternatives. I know Joe asked about this. Does anyone have any comments on that or additional thoughts on that? In terms of, it is a unique parcel. What do we do with it? How do we do it?
Yeah.
Okay. I would be really curious
go ahead.
to know if you'd be willing to do 2 units instead of 3. Just flat out asking the question. I'm curious what his answer would be.
Well, I think we're looking at looking at the feasibility of doing the property period. When you're decreasing the number of units, you are also decreasing the viability of income, and that has a lot to do with building the property, period.
True, but you also lose the additional expense of it. So you're not building an
Yeah,
extra unit.
profitability too. And when you start decreasing the number of units you're putting into a property, you start decreasing your profit.
Woo, you a capitalist, David. I hear it.
No, but this is a cap.
I get it. I get it. I'm just joking. I'm joking.
Keep in mind too, in terms of number of units, this is also in a medium density area.
Yeah.
So it's a use that's permitted as of right.
Yep.
Townhouses are a use permitted as of right. They're here for some physical requirements from it. Of course, proximity to downtown, like the comp plan that I showed you earlier, neighborhood is immediately south of, downtown. So just from like a density number of units standpoint, I think that also ties into the conversation.
Joe, did you have a thought? It looked like you had a thought.
Yeah, well, I guess I look at it as, what if he didn't own that property behind him? So I mean, he's folding that into the equation to justify his variances. But is it improper, Matt, to look at this as if he didn't own that property behind him?
I think you can make the argument either way. I think it's a benefit that he does because he can provide the easements for the off-street parking. But if he didn't own it, and he would, could still very likely, or could still very well make the application. So I don't know if that answers your question,
Okay.
But yeah, you could make the
Yeah, it
argument
does.
either way.
It does. I just wonder if we would be looking at it harder, like saying, "Oh my gosh, you're building right on top."
No, that's a great point.
Property.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point, Joe. That is.
But keep in mind, all these folks got postcards. And the neighborhood association got a postcard as well, that would have gone directly to a person. So in terms of people surrounding the property, they would have all been notified. And we didn't get anything actually from the neighborhood association. I'm sorry, I misspoke. There was a comment from somebody within the neighborhood association. I don't know if he was representing himself or the neighborhood, but.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Do you guys want to do like a straw poll of where you're at for like improvements? Are you guys ready to vote? Where are you?
I think we're ready.
Okay, because
And I don't know where the delay is. Am I delayed?
No,
I've been getting delayed really bad too. Like I didn't hear a word you said like 2 minutes.
No,
ago.
I know. Yeah, I don't know if I'm delayed or what. It doesn't seem like I am on my end either. It seems like other people are on my end, but not me.
Yeah, I'm getting a message that my internet connection is unstable, so it must be just broadband.
Tyrese, I hear you in real time. I don't have any delay with you.
Okay.
I just thought no one was saying anything.
Well, Cora looked frozen up there for a minute.
I'm not frozen, I'm thinking.
Well, before we do
My
a
internet is
vote,
fine.
before we do a vote, I need to have a sense of where the board is at, because right now, based on the conversation, we have to address the standards. So maybe we want to go through the standards specifically so that we have something to go on.
I think was there anybody against this? I think we had a good folks that were supporting it. I know there were questions, but was there anybody against this one, against the application?
Is anyone against it? They feel something needs to be addressed in some manner. I want to get through that now before the vote, and then we're caught by surprise, or I'm caught by surprise.
I'm good with it.
Yeah,
I'm
Matt,
good with it.
yeah,
I'm
Matt,
good
are
with
you
it.
good?
Not a big fan in terms of how tight that space is. That's all it really boils down to. And then there's that possibility of the easement, which has no real direct impact to this case, but even that's a variable. That's when the time does come for him to sell, he may or may not. That's an option then, but it's not a requirement. So overall, I'd say I'm probably going to be the only one to go against it, but
Is that a deal breaker, Matt? Whether or not that easement, does that change the project to you?
Yeah.
You could consider making that a condition of the approval that he
Yeah.
provide these easements for parking on the adjacent parcel.
You can
I
make
think
that
that's
permanent,
good.
right?
That would
Pardon me?
probably push me over the finish line.
I say you can
'Cause I
make that
agree with-
permanent.
I agree with Matt Bain on that.
Okay, if that gets us there, can someone make a motion? And I think the standards are pretty clear on what they've laid out in the written
So I don't know.
application.
I don't know
Orally.
everybody's voice, but the question is being put out there. Is that permanent? Is there a way to make that permanent?
Yes.
Yeah, if he files easements and has, then that is permanent, yeah.
Now,
Okay.
Joanne, do we in our discussion, do we make that easement, do it come from the board or do it come from, him? Because he can change his mind down the line.
Well, it would have to be a condition of
Okay,
approval of the variance, and that's to mitigate the variance for parking. That's to address that variance.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? If someone want to make a motion with that?
I'll make a motion to grant based on the standards submitted with the condition that the easement is filed with the county in perpetuity.
Yes.
However it is, whatever the legal language is there, Joanna.
Mhm.
Okay,
I'll
Second.
second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'm going to run backwards this time. Holly?
Grant.
Joe?
Grant,
Cora?
Grant,
David?
Grant,
Tyrese?
Grant,
And Matt?
Grant.
Okay, so that motion carries 6-0. Let me see what other applicants we have left, and then we will move to members of the public that are still on the call. We have case number I'm sorry. Kelly came back on. We have case 8, North Clinton Road, and then we'll do Monroe Avenue.
okay, so thoughts here. This is for the Well Now. This is their prototypical sign package that's internally illuminated on 3 sides of the building. You heard their testimony. They would like to continue their standard business prototype with the size and the illumination on all 3 sides. We also heard public comment from the neighborhood association who would like to not see the sign. It seemed like I heard some statements about they like to see it smaller, and then there was somewhere more about the gooseneck. Lighting was more important. So we've got size and we've got internally illumination on the table here. And I think we all have seen Well Nows throughout the community. So I think, we're thinking more about what's the character that the neighborhood and what the applicant's asking for in the North Whitten Village. Joe, you look like you have some thoughts ready to go on this one.
yeah, there are so many open issues, I think, with this case and
Mhm.
concerns with the neighbors. And given the fact that this project is just coming out of the ground,
I
so it's
agree.
framed, I would like for them to come back with an alternate sign plan showing us the goosenecks, showing us reduced square footage of the signage on there, and just let us look at it relative to, because I mean, the wellness signs that I see like on the other ones, I just think they're out of scale. They're just so dominant of the front elevation. I just don't know. But that, I don't have enough information. I didn't see enough alternatives. Like they didn't really present, okay, this is how it's going to look if we scaled it
Yeah,
down.
I would agree with you as well. And I think this is a good opportunity because I've always thought the Well Now is like, Joe, you hit it. I go and get sign approvals. It's so out of scale on size wise in that building.
Yeah, and they have 3 of them going up on this building. I'm like, holy cow. I understand Winton Road in the back parking lot, so that I agree with. But I'm thinking that
To at least see it as an alternative, like you said.
yeah, I'd like to see some alternatives, and I'd like to see the gooseneck layout and everything else.
Do you want to see the gooseneck on all 3 of them or just the
Yeah.
the
Just the
Whitten
front.
frontage?
Yeah, I would want to see them on all 3. And I say that because I know they put gooseneck on the Family Dollar next to in the plaza. It doesn't really look great to me. So I would, like Jill said, I would love to see it. I don't know if they got the right size of lighting on that.
I think
Is that
that the family,
But then the signage for the Family Dollar is also, I think, code compliant because it's really tiny. I think it is. It looks code compliant because it's really tiny.
And to address the standards, I see them failing on 3 of them. Essential character of the area. I think that whole area and the development there has got a kind of a standard with goosenecks and not internally illuminated signage. I think that area has done a great job. I think M&M has done a great job in kind of controlling that. No other remedy, they fail on that, and self-created, they fail on that. So that's why, and I think the significance, I could even say they fail on that. So that's why I'd like to send them back to the drawing board and come back with something a little less intense.
As far as size, so what Marilyn or Mary, whichever, had said 30, North Winton Village folks said 30 square feet, which is about a third of what.
Yeah, that might be.
So yeah, do you have a suggestion of what you'd like to see? Give them a couple simulations of different sizes or what?
Yeah, I think the code, because of the design of the building and the lineal footage along the front, is kind of handcuffing them with the signage.
I would agree.
If they turn that building 90 degrees, they probably would get another 20 square feet. You know,
I was wondering if she meant 30 inches, not 30 square feet, because they said it was a 36 inch, right?
the building frontage is quite narrow, really. It's only 50. So you divide that by 2 or 51. So you get 25 and a half square feet.
Right.
The Liberty resource sign that was mentioned, you all did with a lesser relief 2 hearings ago, I think, down to 30 for that reason, that the scale was just too big. The other aspect, Tyrese mentioned the Family Dollar sign. I think part of that, it is code compliant on size, but the other issue is it's almost like they have channel letters that were meant to be internal with gooseneck. So as part of this, I
think that was that makes a lot of sense why it looks kind of weird at night.
So I think for this one, what you're looking to see is channel letters that have no lighting to them.
Because
with exterior lighting as part of, as well as additional sizing scaled for the elevations.
Because I can imagine Family Dollar, well, we made the lights, put them up and throw the goosenecks on them. Joanna, I would also say that I wouldn't be opposed to seeing them scaled down, and also coming back with them illuminated. I mean, the Aldi's and the CVS are illuminated. So, I mean, they do have a case there where I see where they're going with the gooseneck, but there are businesses that have illuminated as well. So I think that's an option. So as Joe said, I think it's an opportunity for them to bring, 2 or 3 options before us, maybe showing size reduction, illuminated, size reduction with goosenecks. If they want to keep it that big with goosenecks.
The frontage right on North Winton, I mean, it's so.
It's huge.
And then it's right huge. There. I mean, you can't miss it. So to take the whole space, it just is. It's a
the thing here too, in terms of I know CVS was mentioned a lot. Blossom Road it's almost as if Blossom's the changeover point. You go south of Blossom and it becomes super commercial. It's much more auto oriented. But once you go north on Blossom, it changes.
And those I also say about further in the parking. So there's parking in front of those buildings versus this one where the parking.
The character changes completely.
Hey Matt, maybe you suggest them bringing in some pictures of some of their other locations where they've done goosenecks and where they made.
Yeah, because she mentioned they do it.
Yeah, she mentioned in New York City they've done it before, so that's great, Joe. I think that's a good idea too, to see some live shots of it as well. That would be really helpful for us.
Okay.
And so how about 2 or 3 different sizes? Because it strikes me that the 30 feet that the Winton Village folks were asking may be out of scale with the space, or it may look fine. So you probably want to see a couple, at least 2 or 3 different sizes.
Yeah, Johanna, what I would say, I would like to see one code compliant, starting that as your base, and then maybe something in between this and right in the middle of this and code compliant, and then we can judge from there.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Sounds great.
But with that building being right up to the road, the scale is just, I mean, no one will be able to see it. It's so large anyway.
Well, it's gonna light up the street like a billboard.
So I'll make a motion to hold this case with the recommendations that are provided to the applicant that we discussed.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Case number 9, we have the applicant here for Sharon. This is the Monroe Avenue case. Again, to reiterate on this one, it's the district is supposed to have a commercial component, so it's not the number of units that's the issue. It's that there's no commercial component to it.
Yeah, you know what, Matt? I appreciate that, but the structure is not even designed to have a commercial face.
Oh, I
facade.
know. Well, she mentioned that as her testimony. She talked about
Yeah.
like they attempted to have a retail component where you walk up and have it, and it just
I think you know what, it's you destroy the character of the house.
the
It looks
residential
like a house.
component.
What's it be, an apartment or whatever you want to call it, and
I think
I
it
think
on a main corridor.
on a
Yeah.
main corridor. Yeah. So
I'm fine.
I'll make a motion to grant.
I'll second it.
We'll go the other way this time. We'll start with Matt,
No, Grant.
Tyrese,
Grant.
David,
Grant.
Cora,
Grant.
Joe,
Grant.
and Holly.
Grant.
Motion carries 6-0.
Can we do Kirkland next?
Let me just make sure there's no other, there's no other applicants. Yeah, if you want to do that, that's fine. And then
Yeah, I would
we'll
like
go
to
back on.
put this one to bed.
And then we'll go down with who's left for public commenting. So
This one
Kirkland-
is this, so Matt and David are hearing this one? Just want to make sure.
So Matt and David are not voting on this
No.
one.
So it needs to be unanimous.
It does need to be unanimous.
No pressure.
Well,
I'm
why
not
don't you all talk about it and then we can go from
Yeah, I was there last month. I had heard the application. There was nothing really additional to the testimony except what we've asked. I'm not there yet for this one. I hate to just say that, but I don't want to waste our time. I wasn't there last month. Joe, what are your thoughts? Maybe you can convince me. Cora, Holly?
I can't convince you.
Well, I was disappointed in the response from the developer, but I got it. There's so many strings attached to all this funding.
Yeah,
and
me too.
all kinds
Same
of
here.
things, and I do sympathize with the applicant. However, it is like shoehorning it into that corner. There's a nice walkway up, and there's a huge tree, I think, from what I remember when I visited last month.
Yep.
It was painful to think of a parking spot going there, but
The tree was gonna have to be cut down, is that right?
I don't know, Johanna, that's a good question.
I thought somebody said that before.
Yeah, I think there was at least one.
I think it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, at least one.
It goes into, for my thoughts, folks make decisions knowing, if you knew that you had challenges, to get in and out of the home you wanted to buy, and you knew it didn't have a driveway. This one is not tough for me, honestly. This one's, very clear. And if you recall, the 19th Ward Association was opposed to this as well. I do think that there's plenty of street parking. I do think that there is enough street parking. Again, you never know how many people are living in homes. So obviously, you can have a single family home, but you have 5 people in there with 5 cars.
Yeah, I'm not there yet either with it.
I'm not either.
So I'll make a motion to grant.
I'll second.
I'm going to run down the other way now. Holly,
And I,
Joe,
And I,
Cora,
Deny.
David.
Nope.
Grant.
I thought David and Matt weren't in this one.
I'm
Oh,
so
no,
sorry.
we're not.
You're not. You're correct. 1, 2, and Tyrese is the last one.
Deny. I hate to deny someone who's, but I tough.
All right. Motion is denied 0-4. Okay, next one we will do is case number 252 Harlem Street.
Thoughts on this one, folks? The carriage house?
I like it.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me get my caught up on my notes here. One second, guys.
What did you say, Cora?
I said I like it.
You like it? Okay.
So this one.
Just got to get like a silent garage opener if you're living like right next to that thing when it's going up. I don't know. Noise bothers me like when I'm sleeping. I need like silence and darkness when I sleep.
Well, tight as it is over there, I'm sure they're not getting much silence.
No, yeah.
And if you're renting an apartment that's above a garage, you know you're gonna have.
Yeah, not my choice, but hey.
But if it's under $1,000 and it's near Park Avenue, sign me up. That's what they say, Thor.
Did I understand from John Lembeck that was a motorcycle club behind there?
No, I think he said the previous,
Number.
the previous owner used to have a hobby with motorcycles and like worked on them there.
Yeah.
I don't think it was like
I
a
knew it was a previous owner, but I thought he said that there was a motorcycle club there where they used to meet on the second floor or something.
Yeah, because he said something about the second floor, and I thought you bring motorcycles upstairs.
No,
I think he just
I
had
worked
party.
on them.
I think there was a motorcycle club association. with
Yeah,
party,
something.
not the actual club.
Yeah, where they
Something.
party, yeah.
Well, what's funny is over on Dewey Ave, the old Wegmans there on the corner of Dewey and is that
Driving park.
Lexington?
driving park.
Driving Park. There's a single family home across the street from it that's literally a motorcycle club.
Oh, nice.
Are you in it, Joe?
No, I was there once though.
No. Okay.
No, I happen to know one of the guys who belonged there and he invited me over there and they have a bar set up. It's like it's a single family home. The living room's a bar, the other room's a pool room.
Illegal
No.
private.
They're always
club,
like
Matt.
that. Yeah, they're like
private
weird.
club. Yeah.
All right, anyway,
One was
guys.
one was the
Alrighty,
marijuana
alrighty.
room.
Matt
It's
Kerman.
already. Let's back
In the,
it
int- in the interest
let's
of
get these
not
done.
being here all night, let's run through the standards on 52 Harlem Street. So the first one is the benefit to the applicant outweighs any detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood. So let's first throw out some benefits to the applicant, and then let's talk about detriments and whether the benefit outweighs them.
Well, it's a great benefit to the applicant.
Yeah.
It's an income opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it allows the owner to use built space on his parcel and to utilize it, in my opinion, to its maximum value, and that's by having it occupied. The detriments, it's hard for me to see what the great detriments to the community would be, because as the applicant clearly stated, I mean, if this was a large parcel and he was doing like a new build of a small carriage house, then, there's some detriments. But something that has historically been in the neighborhood that's there, I'm not even thinking about the car thing. I don't even try to weigh that, because I think we get too crazy about cars and we let cars, determine, development that's good and bad. And it's really not helpful or healthy. So I don't even think about that too much, because that area is filled with cars. It's always gonna be filled with cars. Get over it. Come to the 19th Ward if you want less cars.
You can come to my neighborhood too.
That's true. I'm trying to have 19th Ward property values go up.
They're up.
Question. No, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Joe.
Question for you, Matt. Did I hear this correctly? Remember this correctly? Did you not say that the new 2030 zoning code is going to encourage living units and like garage-like structures in the city?
No. What I said was the existing zoning code has a provision for accessory uses and structures for like a guest house. It's called a guest house or something, but like a rec space for a property owner.
Right, it doesn't have a
can't-
kitchen.
Correct. It's not an actual dwelling unit, and it's not supposed to, and it cannot be rented out separately. The reason I brought that up is because that's basically what he's doing now. He said he he offered testimony about using it as like a rec space and.
Oh, and you just wanted to clear it up so he didn't.
Yeah, that like what
Keep it
he's doing
consistent.
is not wrong. It's
It's not
permitted
wrong
now.
or illegal. Yeah, that
Correct.
was, I figured that was what it was.
But the thing I did bring up with the comp plan was the proximity or the location of the property, proximity to downtown, et cetera, as well as being in a medium density residential district. So it's not in low, it's not in high, it's that mid-level range where you're supposed to provide a balance. You know, to the car conversation, totally get it. One of the things that people have to consider is many people do walk, many people do use sort of all sorts of modes to get around the city. Generally, they do have a car. They might have to store it somewhere. They may not be using it all the time, kind of thing. So it is about providing that balance. So he is keeping some parking on site. The reason for the parking variance, just of note, there is room to park vehicles on the property. I'm just going to pull up the site plan here. However, keep in mind that a legal parking space is a 9x18 area completely in the rear yard. So he's got the garage space. There's still some space between the garage and the main structure. It's just that everything is not neatly packed right behind the house, which is the reason for the variance. It's not like there is not a driveway or he's eliminating all of it, kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does.
I'm with
Is
Cora.
that a
I'm like,
single car driveway, garage, or it's sort of? No,
It seems like it's currently, because there's a large, that first garage door when you pull in is larger, and then there's the smaller garage door. So it looks like you could potentially get, I mean, honestly, if you were to me, it looks like you can get 3 cars in there when I was back there. Make 2 for sure though. Because I peeked in the little sliding door window in the middle. But now that, you know, it's the garage door on the end, so it's kind of, you know, and that garage door at the end is a little smaller, but you can get a minimum 2 in there.
So the remaining garage part would hold 2 cars, you think? It looks like a 2-car door, but it also was only 18 feet. Is that too
No,
narrow?
I don't think so, Johanna.
I don't think you can. I think it would be tight. I think it would be tight. But I don't think
it's 18 feet in width. So yeah, Tyrese is right. So the remaining garage portion would be 18 feet, 3 inches. So depending on how much space you want for your car door to open, could you get 2 cars in there? Yes.
I think you could. You can get 2 small. I mean, you can get a Prius, cars. 2 Priuses in there for sure. Or 2 Volts.
A parking space is defined by 9 foot wide. So 9 and 9, of course, being 18 with a couple inches to spare. It is actually.
It was pretty big. It was a pretty big. It's a pretty big carriage house.
It's huge.
One last question, Matt. Staff. Who was the gentleman that was on? Was he from the city who was on in support of this case?
The architect?
Was that the architect?
No, Milton Pichardo was the architect. The public commenter, Jason Patrica, I think is the last name.
Wasn't that for
Partika? My apologies if I mispronounced your name. I am sorry. No, he's a member of the public who was commenting.
Okay. Oh, but the other one was the architect. Okay.
Yes, Milton was the architect. Scott is the property owner.
Okay.
Should we go through the next one? Are we going through the standards, right?
Yes, we are. Thank you, Cora, for bringing us back. So the next one is the essential character of the area.
I don't think it changes anything.
You can't really see it from the street.
And the changes they're making, the physical changes they're making are not significant.
Right.
Changes to the character.
Well, it's been there forever. So how could it change the character?
They're swapping a garage door to some windows and.
So there's no addition being proposed. There's no raising of a roof. There's no expansion. Okay.
And I think with no other remedy, obviously they don't have to do it. They can utilize it as a garage because it's an accessory structure. That's what we, legally, Matt, it's an accessory structure. So he can use it as to store items, to store vehicles.
But did we say before that that's not really a alternative? Because we can always say that, right? The alternative is not to do
Correct.
it.
So the alternative is to try to get the same benefits. So the alternative is, what code compliant way can this applicant get this approval by getting the same benefit of what you mentioned, income, to use the existing built space, to maximize value on it? What other way within the code would he be able to do that? The alternative is not just don't do it.
Yeah, so there's no other remedy. Significance, I think we kind of touched on that quite a bit in our discussion, is that it won't significantly impact the neighborhood. I mean, there's many multifamily homes throughout this street, this neighborhood. I mean, the property itself is a multifamily. The main property is a multifamily. And again, there's much larger, you can go around the corner, there's much larger multifamilies than this. And this is really off to the back and secluded from, most of the neighborhood. And I'm not even touching the parking thing.
It's actually also another thing to consider. It's a fairly significantly deep lot, over 162 feet.
Yeah. It's almost unassuming. When I pulled up to it, it was like, oh.
No, I was like, where is it? What's that,
So that's good information. So when you're pulling up to it, there's no.
It's not obviously there.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it does. Thank you. Okay. Physical or environmental conditions. Applicant not making any real physical changes.
No.
And I think the physical changes that are being made will actually make it look better as a structure.
Yeah, I agree with adding those windows and those doors and removing a garage door.
Yeah, it's gonna look great. It's gonna
look nicer. Yeah.
And I think it just makes more sense for that space to look like that than to look like a giant garage with a balcony.
Yeah.
Self-created, not self-created.
Hey, Matt.
Yes, sir.
The one thing that concerns me about this, because I've been hearing a lot more, and I think the city's trying to address it, is that this has the potential of becoming an Airbnb. And Airbnbs have been getting a bad name lately because of the transientness of the people coming in and out. Mm-hmm. Is there any way to condition this that it can't be an Airbnb?
So I'm going to provide my answer, and then my attorney is going to follow it up. So the city does not currently regulate private companies or the means by which people rent. So for example, doesn't rent VRBO, or doesn't regulate VRBO, Airbnb, Craigslist, Rent Rochester, whatever the term is. The city regulates whether or not you rent your property, at which point a certificate of occupancy is needed. However, in order to occupy a property, you have to meet the definition of family, which provides several components that have to be met in terms of stability and having some attachment wherever it is you live. In terms of conditioning this, I'm going to turn that one over to Johanna.
Yeah, the other wording in the code is that, it's not a transient tenant, and we're going to be addressing it a little bit more in the new code, but it is a difficult issue, and it is generally has to be if there are problems with I'm going to use the term Airbnb rented property, it's really the nuisance issues that have to be addressed. Keep in mind in this one that if the owner is living there on the main property, he's not going to want to rent this out for parties all the time. So I think that keeps it from happening. But I will fully admit we don't have a fail-proof method of regulating these at this time.
Okay.
But you could say that any apartment could be rented for Airbnb. So I'm not sure that this is particularly susceptible to that.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for this one, guys?
Oh, I'm ready.
I'll make a motion to grant.
I'll second it.
Matt Bain.
Grant.
Tyrese,
Grant.
David,
Grant.
Cora,
Grant.
Joe,
Denied.
and Holly.
Grant.
Motion carries 5-1 with Joe voting no. Okay. Let me just take a peek and see if we have anything. All right, so now we are going to start from the beginning and finish up here. 780 Dewey Avenue. These are the Sunoco signs.
I think this is the last case.
No, two more. Mount Hope.
Two more.
No, Mount Hope is adjourned.
that's
And
great.
This is it.
this is it.
Let's do it.
780
thoughts
Dewey
on this?
Avenue. These are revised signs.
He did
Joe,
exactly
did
what
he-
we asked him to do.
I can't vote on this, right, Matt?
Correct.
No.
David and Matt are no.
No, yeah, they did. They came back and did what we had asked them to, and I think they did a good job. They even took down some of the canopy signs.
I agree.
Surprised they don't want that Sunoco on the canopy on the front, unless I missed it. They're gonna have it on the the south side of the canopy. It was interesting.
They removed it. Tyrese last time spoke about the concern about the two sides of the canopy facing residential. So they removed that. It's now
Okay.
only going to face Lexington and Dewey.
Yeah.
There'll be no
And
signage
Matt, I
facing
think-
the residential.
You touched on something before, his cameras. I would really like to see that disguised in some sort of a light pole, a decorative light pole, rather than just a pole sticking up.
That's where I went with the light.
Yeah, I totally agree. Tell them to throw a light up there and then put a camera on it, not just a pole. I mean,
The light pole.
I don't buy the camera stuff, man. Have the city police need to put up more cameras on city property, and he can put up cameras around his property and other locations. So that's where I stand with that one. But if he
Is that
throws up a
allowed?
light,
Matt, is he allowed to do that? To just put a pole up and put a camera on it?
I mean, people put stuff up for lighting. I don't really see how it's any different. I think when it's going to be problematic is when it starts being used for something other than that, like a sign
Yeah.
gets attached to it, or
Yeah.
it starts to progress into something else, which
Yep.
then it becomes an issue. Which
So
is
I
why
think-
I mentioned not keeping the original poll now, because what I've seen happen is they're like, well, I'm just going to keep that to use for X, and then X leads to Y and Z. And
Yeah.
like Joe said, have him throw up a nice LED light, make the place even safer. More light equals safety. So
So-
gotcha.
I'll make a motion to grant with the condition that the camera mounting element is approved by the director. of
You
zoning.
don't even need to do that condition, because if you're approving the revisions in the application, the camera would have to be separate anyway, and I can work
Okay.
with him on that.
So I'm gonna make a motion to grant.
And this is the revisions that were submitted tonight?
Yeah. Mhm.
yes, I'll second it.
Okay, and we'll start with Holly
Grant.
and Joe,
Grant.
Cora,
Grant.
and Tyrese.
Grant.
Okay, so that motion carries 4-0. And I do believe we are done with the cases. Let me verify. Didn't hear Katie.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yes, we are.
Can
Right.
can I just have a brief chat about something? So the 6 foot the approval you gave for the monument sign at 6 foot height. Matt and I were texting each other and observed.
Melissa,
that-
you can stop the YouTube
Oh, yeah,
stream.
sorry.
We're done
let me
with the
take
hearing.
off YouTube, yep.
Okay, but I have a quick question. I still have 3 cases. I don't know where I missed it. I haven't left my seat, but I have 3 cases that haven't been voted on. I could be missing something.
Which cases do you have, Melissa?
Actually 2, because Katie was removed.
Mhm.
Atlantic and Mount Hope.
Mount Hope was adjourned during the hearing, and we did Atlantic first.
Atlantic was
Oh, okay, okay, thank you.
Okay, yep, you're welcome.